everybody, Tom Morley from Pause 365 again, and in the last video we left off with just compositing the ship over our beach background. So next thing we want to do is we want to learn how to animate in Natron. So we're going to create this project in HD, which is 1920 by 1080. And you can see that this beach background is 2400 by 1500. So we need to convert this into HD format before we start animating. So we will select our beach scene and we will hit the tab key to bring up our search. And let's search for something that might resize. And check it out, there's a resize node. So we'll look at the resize node by double left clicking on it and coming up here, and we see that the size is going to be too large. Let's change it to 1920 by 1080. 1080. Now, when I do that, I know that the aspect ratio is not right, so I'm going to end up having some black bars here. So if I don't want to preserve the aspect ratio, then I can uncheck this X box here, and you'll see that the background kind of enlarges to fill in all the area of the 1920 by 1080. So if I click it, you'll see the difference. Okay, but we want that turned off so that we have the full 1920 by 1080 background for the beach. So there we go. The beach part is done. Now, because I've done that, and when I originally loaded this image in, remember what it did? It changed our project dimensions too, right? Our project settings. So let's come over here into the properties section, scroll all the way down, and you'll see in our project settings that our HD actually is set correctly, but it shouldn't be. I don't remember doing that in the previous video. But anyways, if this output format is not 1920 by 1080, just click here and select 1920 by 1080, because we want the output format to match all of the items that we're working with in our project, right? So we've resized that to HD, and our project settings are HD, so we're good. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is animate the ship. So let's kind of use our middle mouse button here, and you can press your middle mouse button and move the image around, and I'm just going to get it so that it fills up fairly well the screen here. And I want to use my transform node to move my ship around. So I'm going to double left click on my transform node so it's up here. And I want you to take a look at the X and Y coordinates when I grab this cursor and move the ship around. You'll see that those XY coordinates change, right? So what I want to do is I want the ship to be up here at frame 1. So make sure that you're at frame 1 by hitting this back arrow, and you are on frame 1. So I want to create a keyframe for the ship at this location. So go to the Translate X box and right click and select Set Key All Dimensions. Now what you've done is created a keyframe for the X and Y location of the ship at frame 1. Now go to the last frame, which is frame 250, by hitting this button. See, you're on 250, and I want the ship to be moved to location down here. Just right there, it's fine. Now you'll see when I did that, that the Translate X box and Y box are dark blue. So that means that it automatically created a keyframe for me. So now if I just press the play button, you'll see the ship moving from this location down to the location at 250. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. It's doing what I anticipated. So another thing it should do though, right, is if the ship's way out at sea, it's going to be a lot smaller than it would be here. So let's go back to frame 1, and we need to reduce the size of the ship. So again, the translate node will help out. We can change the scale here. We can put it down, make it smaller. That's fine right there. Now you can see it's not in the right location, but that's okay. Let's create a keyframe here for the scale. Again, right click on it, set a keyframe, all dimensions, and now it's dark blue. I'm going to grab the ship and move it down about in the middle of the sun here, like that. And you can see it automatically created a keyframe because it's dark blue for my X and Y locations. So I'm good for all the keyframes in frame 1. Let's go to the end, and you can see that I need to increase the size of my ship at the end of my animation, 250, frame 250. I'm going to come here. Now you see that this value box here is not dark blue, but almost like a light blue or a bluish gray. And that's because there's no keyframe set for the ship there. That's because no value has been changed for the ship. As soon as you change the value, it's going to automatically create a keyframe for you. So if I put in 1 here, press enter, you'll see that this box automatically turns dark blue. That means that it created a keyframe for me. So I think that that's going to look pretty good. Let's take a look here. And from there up to there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and click play, and I want to see a preview of this, and I'll come back after it finishes rendering all of these frames so you don't have to stick with me. So yeah, it looks pretty good. The ship's moving along just like I was kind of hoping it would, and the size value is pretty good for way out to sea and coming up here to the front. So I guess the next thing I want to do is actually create some text that goes over all of my existing animation. So I'm going to press stop, and I am going to move my viewer node over a little bit. And I'm just going to click over here in the gray area, and I'm going to click the tab key to bring up a text node. There it is. So I'm going to select it. Now I want this text node, right, to be over all of these nodes that create my scene. Okay. So I'm going to need to create another merge node, and I know the merge is going to be over all of this, right? So select your text, and we need to create a merge node. Again, you can do it by just pressing the M key, because we use merge and transform so often that it's got a hotkey for it. And it created that merge node, and it's automatically got the text in the A pipe, which is exactly what we need. Now I need the B pipe to go into our existing scene, which is our merge 2, right? So let's kind of clean things up a little bit so we know what's going on. Let's click on the merge 2 node, and let's rename that to merge for our ship. I'm just going to put -ship. This kind of cleans things up, and it's not so much an issue with this small scene, but as your scenes get larger, and they get larger fairly quick, it'll get confusing kind of what is going on where. So name your nodes so that it helps you out a little bit. So this is the merge for the text. Right. Okay. And ultimately our viewer needs to be piped into our merged for the text. And you see that we're getting exactly what we expected. The text is right here. Now we can move the text up and over. I want to make sure I'm working on frame 1, which there's frame 1. And I want to pick a different font style for my text. So I double left click on the text node. So it's up here in my properties area. And we're going to call it Pirate Party 2018. And I'm going to make that a different font because I don't like that one. You know what I like? You can pick anything you want for a font. And the size has to be a little bit larger. Kind of just eyeballing it. I don't remember what I used the last time. That looks okay to me. Up just a smidgen. And I think I want it to have a red outline as well. So I'm going to go into the font properties, and the stroke size, I'm going to put it up to about 11-ish somewhere. See how that looks. and maybe a little bit less. 14 looks pretty good. I'm not going to be picky. If your outline is not red, you can click on the color dialog here and you can change your font color by just picking whatever color you want. Now don't forget, the slider over here is going to be the different values between light and dark. So make sure that it's not all the way on black. This is going to be the color when you click OK that your outline will be. So make sure it's the color you want, or you click OK. And I'm going to go red. I think that will be okay. Okay. Yeah, it's a little too dark for me. Lighten it up a bit. That should be okay. Yep. I like that. That looks pretty cool. So now I'm going to have a final look at this. I'm going to preview render, and I will see you when the preview is done. Okay, the preview looks pretty nice. I like the way the ship's moving, and I like the text up there, but I think I would like that text to kind of fade in on my intro. So is there a way I can do that? There sure is. You can animate the transparency of the text over time as well. So let's do that. Let's go back to frame 1. And what are we using to put the text over the background? We're using the merge text node, right? So if we click on that, you'll see that there's a mix value here for merging the text over the background. Watch the text when I grab this control and move it towards 0. You'll see that the text becomes more transparent as I go closer to 0, right? So what we're going to do is at frame 1, we're going to create a keyframe. How do you create a keyframe again? Yep, that's right. Right click, set the key. So it's dark blue. You know that you've got a keyframe at frame 1. So now I might want the text to start fading in around 65. It doesn't have to be exact. You can come over here and left click, or you can just type in 65 here if you want to be exact. So I want to create a 0 keyframe at frame 65. Well, you can see it didn't automatically create a keyframe, right? Because this value box is kind of like a very light blue, not a dark blue. And it didn't create a keyframe automatically because no values have changed for this item. But I want it to remain 0, right? I want it to be 0 at frame 65 and then start fading in as time goes on from 65. So you can create a keyframe manually just by right-clicking and setting a keyframe. You see how that turned dark blue, right? Okay, so now I want to go to, I don't know, frame 180. Let's say if we want it totally visible at frame 180. So I'm at frame 180. I'm going to see that's light blue. Watch what happens when I change the value. It's creating an automatic keyframe for me. So at 180, the text will be totally visible, right? And I don't have to worry about any keyframe at the end because I just want it to be visible all the way to the end. So what is going to happen, I'm going to press play and I'll come back after the preview is complete. Okay, the preview is complete and you can see the text fade in from 65 to 180 and the ship is kind of moving from the background to the foreground. So this is pretty cool. There's only, I guess, for me, a couple of things that I would like to change. I think that the text is fading in much too slowly. I think it needs to fade in much faster. So how can I fix that now that I've done all these keyframes? Well, I could go and delete the keyframe at 180, I suppose, and then create another keyframe where I want it. But there's an easier way to adjust your keyframes, okay? So I'm going to press stop here. And I also think I want the text to be up just a smidgen, so I'm going to put it up just a little bit. And it's centered in this area a little bit better. It's good to me. All right, so back to what I really was talking about, and I want to adjust the keyframe for my text at 180. I kind of want it to be moved. So is there a way for me to do that? Well, not in the node graph, but you've got these other tabs. One's a curve editor. We're not going to talk about that now, but let's take a look at the dope sheet. Now, if we click on the dope sheet, you will see there's your merge node, your merge text node, right? And this is why we name things so that we can understand what's going on. So there's my merge text node. And I know that I created a keyframe at 0, right? Here's my frames down here on the bottom. I created a keyframe at 0, there it is. And then I created another one at 65, and there's that keyframe. And there's my keyframe at frame 180. What I want that to do is kind of move that keyframe at 180 up a little bit, maybe to around I don't know, 145-ish. So you can do that just by left clicking on that keyframe, and you see it says it's at 180, and you can just move it. And let's see, let's move it to, we're at 65, let's move it to 110. Let's just say we want it to fade in from 65 to 110. So now that's what I've just done, is I've adjusted that keyframe from 180 to 110. And now I'll press play and render that out, and when it's done I'll come back. Okay, it finished rendering and it looks great. Yeah, I like how the text is coming in much faster, and the ship animation from the back to the foreground is exactly what I'm looking for. So I think really this tutorial is complete, with the exception of, now that I've done all this work, how can I get a video of it to put up on maybe YouTube? So we're beginners. I'm not going to talk about some of the higher end formats of exporting your projects. Let's click on the node graph, and what we need to do is create a writer node. Now you can hit tab and type in write and grab the node that way, right? That's one way to do it. Or you can just press the W key to generate a write node and automatically pop up the file dialog box. So it's asking me where I want to save it and how I want to save it. Now there's a couple different ways that you can save your project, and I guess it really depends on how much more editing you want to do to the images in the next application. So if you're just looking to export this and throw it up to YouTube, then you could save it as a movie file. Okay, so where it says sequence here, actually, let's find a location for it first. Where am I? I'm in my project. Okay, I'm in my compositing folder. So I don't want to save it as a sequence of images. I want to save it as one file. That is a video file. I want to save it as one video file. Now there's multiple formats. If you click on file type, you can look at all the different file types that you have available to you for saving, such as AVI or MP4 or MOV for, Apple format. I typically stick with MP4, so I'm just going to say pirate party, and I'm going to put in .mp4. So what I've just said is I'm going to create a file, and it's going to be named pirateparty.mp4. And I'm going to click save, and you'll see that that's in my file location here. Now, I also click on the Advanced tab, and I increase the quality from medium, which I don't think is high enough for really any output. And I click on high quality if I'm going to export it so that friends can see it, or if I'm going to put it up on YouTube. Again, MP4 format is not a professional format. It's just a format that pretty much everybody can play. So it's a good format if you just are messing around, or if you want to just show somebody something you've been working on in medium to a little bit better than medium quality video. All right, so now that I've done that, I need to connect my write node into the same node that my viewer is looking at, right? So my viewer is looking at my merge text. I need my write node to look at that as well. Now I just click the render button. and it will start rendering. And it's going to take a little bit, and I will come back after it's done. Okay, it looks like it finished rendering, so let's take a look at the video file that we created. And there it is. It looks pretty cool. All right, well, that's how you merge images in Natron and animate them. I hope you learned something, and if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Subscriptions help me out a lot, so I'll see you in the next video.